Morbidly Beautiful presents a horror interview podcast hosted by Brodie Hubbard. You have entered the chamber.
Welcome to The Chamber, a horror interview podcast on the Morbidly Beautiful network. I'm your host, Brodie Hubbard. If this is your first episode, thanks for joining me. I enjoy talking to creators, writers, performers in the horror genre, and today's guest has done it all, behind the camera, in front of the camera. His name is Joe Castro. Now, you can look up his portfolio at joecastrofx.com. He's certainly also accessible on Instagram and Facebook, but a little on his backstory. Originally from San Antonio, Texas, at age 15, he's doing special effects makeup for a local PBS affiliate. He wins a Monsterland Award for makeup and then moves to LA to pursue doing feature films, TV. We're going to talk about a lot of those works today. I can't believe we didn't get around to talking about The Mutilator 2, which is coming out. We didn't talk about Bill Lustig and Larry Cohen's Uncle Sam. But we do talk about Herschel Gordon Lewis. We talk about the TOONS franchise. We talk about a Guinness World Record level body count in one of his movies. And now welcome Joe into the chamber. We were briefly talking about a company I used to work at, and that you said you were there briefly. What capacity were you there?
Well, I wasn't actually there at the company. The company hired me to do special effects for a show that they were just putting together about, I think it was like a cryptozoology encounters. It's like a reality show about cryptozoology encounters. And I made it was something like the Abominable Snowman, but it was another I guess the natives in Alaska have another word for it, and it kind of was more like a chupacabra, yeti, abominable snowman, ape, or kind of werewolf all together kind of thing.
Okay.
And yeah, and so I made a big puppet, and and then they took it to Alaska, I think, to film with it or something. I don't know. I never saw the show. I never saw it with that. Yeah.
Was this for Missing in Alaska?
I don't know. I don't remember the name.
That was one of the last shows I worked for. Worked on for them.
Were there different creatures on the show?
There were different just stories about like so and so went missing, and does it have to do with does it have to do with gnomes or body snatchers, or there was a couple different
maybe that was it then. I think maybe that was it then.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was like one of the very last shows I worked on before I moved back to my home state. I'm in Arizona now.
Okay.
And just lifestyle change, career change, lots of things.
Yes, sure.
Although I miss it. Are you there now? You're in Los Angeles now?
Yes. I came here in '89, and then I went back home and met my husband in 97, 98, and then we came back here in 2000. So yeah.
Cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
I know a lot of your stuff. I know a lot of your work. There were things I was surprised to learn about as I dug deeper to kind of know exactly what we should cover today, because we try to give everybody a glimpse into artists' portfolio and just kind of what horror means to them. But I would be remiss not to bring up the work on Roseanne, because that's like one of my favorite sitcoms of all time, and the Halloween episodes were definitely my favorite of that show.
Right. Yeah. In fact, working on Roseanne for Carsey Warner at CBS was like literally, I think, my first real job in LA. And I was like literally in my apartment. I had just moved from Helotes, Texas to Los Angeles, and I was working at a Universal Studios picking up cigarette butts in the theme park, and I was barely making enough money to eat and at the time, and I didn't know where I was going to get rent money from. And a friend of mine who I met almost a decade before, actually not, that's all right, maybe like 5 years before, called me up and said, Joe, I have this little job that came in. It's for Roseanne, the TV show, and they need a costume for the Three Stooges. And they thought they could go out like the day before they were going to shoot it and go to like a toy like a costume shop and find masks of the Three Stooges, and then they were going to put it together themselves. But I guess there's some sort of trademark or copyright thing that prevents anybody from making a Three Stooges mask at the time. And they said so they need masks of Larry and Curly. Can we do it? And I said, when do they need it? They said tomorrow. And I said, how much are they paying? And they said, enough, a lot. And I said, come on, let's do it. And we did. It was a 24-hour gig, and we just went right to it. And it was my good friend Jim Keegan. I haven't talked to Jim in decades. I don't know where he is. I kind of lost contact with him, but if you're out there in the universe and you hear this, please reach out to me, say hello. Yeah, good times. Nothing but good memories from that. Yeah. And yeah.
You also have more awards than I even knew existed. Like, you are the guy, the award-winning special effects dude. Is that something that you submit for? Is that something where people just see the work because they're in the know and they know? I sense, and again, I am more of a literary guy. I haven't had much time on film sets, but my inkling is that there's a kind of a community, a tight-knit community of special effects folks, and so you would all know each other's work pretty well.
That's it's interesting that you bring that up. I think back in like the 80s and 90s, we were all very, very close. And, this is a kind of a tender subject, to be honest with you. Or maybe you knew that. That's why you asked the question.
No, I did. I did. In my world, everybody's friends.
Yeah.
So
back in like in the 80s and 90s, I mean, even back in back in the 80s when I was 12 years old, I could pick up the phone and call Tom Savani on the phone and talk with him. We had 411, and if your phone number was listed in the phone book in the city you lived in, you could call the operator and they would give you the phone number, and you called them, and it's very professional, very cordial. Hi, I'm a fan of yours. I'm someone who's been interested in your work, and they would just be very cordial and talk with you. It wasn't like it is today. And then what happened was we had these groups of people, and we all knew each other. We would all go to the movies together. We would all go to each other's premieres, and I had some amazing adventures in special effects in the 90s, working on direct to home video sequels to like our favorite films, like Wishmaster and Night of the Demons and things like this. And then there was living in Los Angeles, you get the opportunity to go to movie screenings of movies that are like incomplete or unfinished, and you become a test audience. And I remember like going to see like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3 as a incomplete, a rough cut version of the film. And it was loaded with all the special effects and the gore, and I went with all my special effects buddies. We all went to go see it, and of course you'll never see that cut again. You'll never see that. It was all heavily trimmed, and but these are the kind of things that we did together, and then what happened was back in about 14 years ago, there was a show on the Sci-Fi Network called Face Off.
Yes. And
that show basically tore the industry apart because it pitted people against each other. And what it did was it basically what it did was it was a show that was supposedly going to launch people's careers, and how they intended to do that was they were going to bring people on the show that were knowledgeable and were good, and pit them against people that they wanted to blow up their careers, and they were going to make the people that were knowledgeable look unknowledgeable and bad against people who didn't know what they were doing. And so it kind of tore the industry apart. and people, the special effects artists then began, stabbing each other in the back, talking about each other, because what the show really did was destroy people's careers. It didn't launch anybody's career. And it was all for entertainment. That's all it was. It was all for entertainment, because the people that were watching the show truly believed that these people were terrible, and the ones that were terrible shouldn't be on the show, and blah blah blah. And the people who won, they were amazing. And the truth be told, if just to be on the show, you had to have some inkling of knowledge. You were good at what you did, right? Except in certain cases, like there are people that were on the show that were that were kind of being shown in a positive light. They were there because their boyfriend got them on the show, or they were there because they worked with the judges on the show already, and this sort of thing. So yeah, it really tore the industry apart. It really did. And I would have to say today, it's just not the way it was back in the 80s and the early 2000s, when we were in 90s, when we were really close and friends. And it's sad, but it was because of that one show that did it. Yeah.
Do you see it possibly returning to something better? Because I do notice, like, I think about how I was introduced to you, and I think about a movie you worked on, The Barn, too. And like, I was watching that movie and saw folks that I know, were acquainted with, and like, oh, he's in that project and he did that, and I know her from this project. And I know that there's folks who do like to work with each other again and again, but also recommend other folks. And I do, like I say, see crossover in some films I have begun enjoying over the last few years, or that we've begun to, these rising, up and coming directors, things like that.
Absolutely. I mean, once the show was off the air, it finally did end, and I think maybe it came back for a couple of seasons, or I don't know what it's doing now. But once the show was taken off the air, things began to repair itself. And then once the show was exposed for being kind of a rigged competition, where it wasn't really an actual competition, it was basically there for entertainment, things began to repair themselves and begin to have actual relationships with other special effects artists again. But what happened was the show really afforded me the opportunity to kind of like reinvent myself and kind of find the people that were you find out real fast who your friends are, right in situations that are unpleasant, and and that's basically what happened. So it was kind of like I don't know if you know this, but I was on season 3, and I'm the only special effects artist to walk off the show, because I immediately within the first episode realized that the show was it wasn't a real competition. They were grooming a girl to win the show, and I could see it was very obvious. So I just left the show. Most people say I was a sore loser and this kind of thing, and the truth is, I already knew who the winner was going to be. I mean, would you want to be on a competition show if you knew that you weren't going to win?
Of course not.
They're right. Of course, that's not what was presented to the audience. The audience was, Joe is a poor sport, and he, this kind of thing. He should have stayed either way, but no. It's like that was a rigged comp. We were there as props. The show was cast as I think there are 13 contestants on the show, or so 14. Okay. So the show was cast with 13 losers and 1 winner. That's how the show was cast.
Gotcha. I did come from that, reality show area we were talking about, as far as so
then
I do. I wasn't exposed to as much of it because of the nature of what we did, which was more and I use this loosely, documentary, but some more, though, some soft scripted shows that were more like what you see with the Kardashian or something like that, where it was, kind of reality show, but situation comedy, definitely have had that. So you're now parallel to this, and, your extensive work on other folks' projects, as far as other writers and directors, you're writing and directing, you have a significant number of movies, but I want to talk right now about the TOONS franchise, because I know that you're very much promoting TOONS 4 right now. So having not seen the entirety of the series, but having enjoyed much of it, including just, how do I put this? So forgive me if this is a hackneyed like comparison, but it's kind of like Who Framed Roger Rabbit, but horror. And maybe you've heard that comparison before. I'm almost sure you have.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That's what it is.
Creating a cartoon world, but in reality. And it's very unnerving in a disturbing like mood and tone, because it's the sense of humor of a cartoon, but like these horrible things are happening to human bodies.
That's right. Yeah.
I would really love to know about your the genesis of that, and you know what you're, you know, if I am properly picking up what you're putting down as far as what you're aiming for.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, sure. Well, first of all, for anybody who hasn't seen any of the TerraToons movies, I just want to say up front, as you're watching this, you can go to TerraToons.tv, and there's a trailer there. There are trailers to the film so that you can understand what we're talking about. And it's a very unique, a very original kind of niche genre concept that I have going on. In fact, it's so niche that you know, like my husband and I invented the franchise. It's like whenever we see someone do something, it's like obvious that it was inspired from our film, because there's only one place in the world you can get evil cartoon characters that come to life into the real world and kill people with cartoon weapons, but when you die for real, and it's very bloody and gross. Yeah, no, I've been compared to Who Framed Roger Rabbit with the franchise, and like Who Framed Roger Rabbit meets like Herschel Gordon Lewis films from the 1960s and 70s, that all of his gory films. And in fact, Herschel was actually in TerraToons 3. He's the star of TerraToons 3.
Yes.
And Herschel Gordon Lewis. And if you don't know who Herschel Gordon Lewis is, Herschel is basically the godfather of gore. He invented the slasher splatter movie cinema back in 1963 with a movie he directed called Blood Feast. And you know, I had the honor to work with Herschel on Blood Feast 2 back in 2001, and that's, I introduced him to TerraToons. Then I gave him a copy of it, and he loved it. And I said, "Can you give me a quote?" And he said, "Sure." And he said, this is how he describes it. He said it was wild and unpredictable.
Yes.
And yeah, that's what it is. It's just, you never know. I mean, the cartoon dimension, anything is possible, you know. And you know, the franchise was invented. A friend of mine and I were driving to a movie set, and we saw this image of this weird cartoon cat on someone's bumper sticker. And I just remember we just started talking about the idea that there's never been a movie made about cartoon characters that come out of the TV. They literally come out of the TV. They're three-dimensional. And then they kill you for real with giant cartoon weapons. And you know, I turned to my friend and I said, I want to do it. That's what I want to do. I want to do it. And then I think within like a month we were already shooting it, you know. Yeah.
Nice. And there's a lot of great folks who have appeared in the franchise. And I believe it's the first and third, and maybe the fourth. You can remind me. As far as this person, how did you find Lizzie Borden, who I know as somebody from the notorious XPW, which for those who don't know, was a very extreme, it's in the name, XPW, pro wrestling company that if you're, even if you're not a wrestling fan, but if you like Vice Media documentaries, they have Dark Side of the Ring, and they have a whole thing about XPW and Lizzie Borden. And so I was just like, oh, somebody put Lizzie Borden in the movies. That's great. And not the adult, you know, pornographic
right.
she was known for, but like in a horror role.
So I met Janet Romano is her name, Lizzie Borden. I met Janet because at the special effects shop where I was working at the time, when we were working on the stuff that where we had the concept of TerraToons, Extreme was literally right across the street from the company I worked at, and they were always outside smoking cigarettes, and we were always outside smoking cigarettes and doing stuff. And we literally just, I think they walked over and said hello, or we met somewhere in the middle of the street and we're talking. And in fact, Scott Burrows, who plays Max Assassin in the first film, and he's also in the third one. He was her bodyguard at one time. Okay. And then he was there too. So that's how they both got involved in the original. TOONS. We just basically walked across the street and said hello, and how's it going, and this kind of thing. And that's how it happened. Like literally everybody in the very first film. It happened so fast that I didn't even have an audition. I asked a whole bunch of people if they wanted to be in it, and whoever showed up to the first reading was in it. They were like, hey, "You got this part. You got it." That's how it went down. It was all magic how it all came together.
Nice. And then as the franchise moved forward, as your name and cachet increased with all the work you were doing, you got some other folks in there. Brink Stevens and who plays in multiple.
Brink is in part 2, 3, and 4. Yes. And I've known Brink since like 1986. I met her when I won a national special effects makeup contest through Monsterland magazine.
Yes.
And she was the spokesperson for the magazine. Her character's name was Evola, I believe. And we became close friends then. So it was real. I work with Brink in every film I make, and she's amazing. And then of course we have Linnea Quigley in the franchise now from Return of the Living Dead and Night of the Demons. Debbie Rochon from Romeo and Juliet. I think that's one of her big films. And Billy Butler's in the movie. Billy Butler was in the remake of Night of the Living Dead, the one that Tom Savini directed. He was in Friday the 13th Part 7. He was in Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3. And then let me see who else is in it. Got Mike Ferguson, who's blowing up right now. And the list goes on and on. I've been very fortunate to have a lot of name talent in the movies, but of course the ones that the dearest to me is Herschel Gordon Lewis.
Yes.
And being in part 3. So
very cool. And then some of these folks also you were working alongside for The Barn 2, which is director Justin M. Seaman, and Linnea Quigley's in that as well. Some other, I almost don't want to spoil it because some of them pop up in cameos that you don't expect. So for those who haven't seen it, watch The Barn Part 2, just right one after the other. That's how I did it, and I loved it. But and on the visual version of this podcast, because there's also audio, but visual, we'll definitely be seeing your works. What is the most fun for you, as far as I do sense you like the eyeball
things in people's eyes?
You like yourself a good eyeball effect, I think.
It people don't realize it's challenging to do something on someone's face where you are having to remove a portion of the person's face. That's like the most challenging thing to do. When you're ripping off someone's skin and you have to put something on someone, or when you're, taking out someone's eyeball or this kind of thing. Yeah, it's always challenging. But I really, people think of me as a someone that does a lot of blood and gore work. But I just enjoy it when a director allows me to bring my own interpretation of his words to life, and it kind of gives me free reign to do whatever I want, and because the special effects can kind of take on their own way of telling the story, and I always tell people, if I give you what you ask for, you might be disappointed in what you might have missed. And that's of course I like working very closely with the director to make sure I give them what they need, but I like to put my own touches onto it, so that way they get something that they've hopefully never seen before. Movies used to be truly original, back in the 80s and 70s, and now today, with all the sequels and remakes and rehashes of ideas, it seems like it's just like going to McDonald's and eating another burger. But that's what I try to do with everything I do, is I try to just kind of like reinvent the wheel each time I'm doing it, trying to make it extra special. There was a young girl who is a budding special effects artist from India who reached out to me the other day, and we were talking, and she said, do you let the producers keep everything? And I said, well, it depends. It depends what relationship I have with them. If you're going to work with them again, and maybe it's nice to give them something to remember you by, But I said, but once you put something out into the world, people can look at it and they can study it, they can pick it apart. And I said, sometimes it's important to keep special effects special and private, so we don't reveal the magic to everybody, And with today's day and age with the internet, it's hard to do that. But yeah, yeah.
I would imagine you have at least a room or two or wall or two that just has, things lined up there to admire. And with your husband being a partner on projects, I'm sure that's permissible more
Yeah.
than it would be for some of us and our partner.
Yeah, it's all over it's kind of all over the place. I'm looking at, if you can see my desk, I mean, I have this is prosthetic glue sitting right here. I have a set of zombie teeth sitting right here. I have here's an eyeball sitting right here. I got it's the whole place is basically, I mean, I live, eat, and breathe this. I've been doing it for almost 40 years now, or about 40 years. And it makes me happy. It makes me happy to be able to do what I love. And I'm very grateful that I've had the opportunity. I've had 40 years to do that.
Wonderful. And you have hopefully 40 more years coming up. What
yeah, absolutely. I always joke, I want to be like, 40 years from now, I'll be let me see, 53, 93,
right.
And I'll be on set, and I'll be they'll come pick me up in the morning, take me to set with my little box, and I'll do the makeup they asked me to do, and then I'll be there for half the day, and then we'll have lunch, and then someone will drive me back home.
Yes.
That would be awesome. That would be so amazing at 93. I would love it. Yeah.
What projects in the immediate future are you looking forward to talking about and showing off? I know
great. Yeah.
IMDb will always tell you what's coming up, but you're never sure. You're always waiting for that thing in development or in production or in post-production to finally turn over and be available for people to see.
There's a couple of things happening that I'm not at liberty to speak about, but there is one coming up in December for director Chad Farron. It's a sequel to a movie he made a while back called Unspeakable 2, and it's one of my all-time favorite scripts that I've read in a long time. And I'm doing some amazing Chad just literally lets me to do my thing, and he likes to delegate authority to me to design creatures, and so I'm really looking forward to working with Chad again. This will be our 6th feature together. We just had a movie have its world premiere here in Hollywood called Pig Killer. It stars Jake Busey and Bai Ling and Lou Temple from House of a Thousand Corpses, I believe, and or The Devil's Rejects. I'm not sure. Oh, now
Devil's Rejects. He was also Rejects. In the house not the house. Sorry, it's the third Saturday in October.
Okay,
I saw him in. That's right.
Okay, and then we also have another movie coming out called what's it called? Oh, The Old Ones, which is an H.P. Lovecraft film. Yeah.
I saw a few. I think I saw pictures of some of the creatures for that.
Yeah, and then there's also a werewolf film. I believe it's called, and I probably shouldn't say the title yet. It hasn't been released yet, but I'll wait on that one. It's a new werewolf film. I have one that just came out in October called The Beast Comes at Midnight. There's another one. So I've had the opportunity to make a couple of different werewolves, and there's a new one coming out. It's pretty hip, slick, and cool. But just kind of just keep rolling with the stuff. Appetite for Sin. There's a movie called Tin Roof that hopefully will come out soon, and so anyhow, but right now on our plate, we've just released TerraToons 4,
right?
And like I mentioned earlier, TerraToons.tv. If you watch the franchise, there's 4 of them. If you watch the franchise, each movie is slightly different from the next. They're all, I kind of wanted to make sure that I didn't look back on my career and make the same movie over and over again. And the whole the concept of the cartoon is so loose, because you can do anything in a cartoon universe. Right. That it's I find it very hard to appease the kid in me with that, and of course also to appease the masses, because anything is possible. So you can go off on one direction, and and this whole fan base might not understand it, and then someone else through your fan base may just love it, and that's been the case with, I think, with Caratoons 4. It's an anthology film. There are 4 stories in it, and I tried to give a little something to everybody through the first 3 films that like the first 3 films. So I'm hoping that it's well received. It seems like it has been so far.
Yeah. Do you imagine that it continuing as mainly a vehicle for anthology?
No. If we did a part 5, it would definitely be a full one story structured feature. I don't know that I'll ever do anthology again. That's just for right now, because I've done several of them now so far. I did a movie called The Summer of Massacre,
Yes.
which has the highest body count in a slasher movie. That's also done as a kind of an anthology, even though the wraparound story in the film kind of ties it all together. And then Terratoons 3 is sort of an anthology film. There's basically 2 stories that are interwoven together, and then Terratoons 4 is also an anthology. And then Stephen and I did a science fiction film somewhere in between all of that called we're retitling the film, but it's called Xenophobia, and it's the first ever alien abduction anthology film.
Nice.
And yeah.
There's definitely an undercurrent of or not, I shouldn't say an undercurrent. It's more there is a section, this cross-sectional side, yes, cross-section of sci-fi and horror fans who are particularly creeped out. I have a couple of friends I'm thinking of, individuals in particular, who are like totally creeped out by aliens and love/hate/cringe at alien-based horror, which I think is a very specific niche that is still really being explored, or it's good that it's still being explored. It hasn't been overdone, I don't think. Like I know a really popular film was this oh gosh, No One Will Save You. Is that the name of the one I'm thinking of? That was
I haven't seen that. I haven't heard. I think I've heard of it. I haven't seen that one. Yeah, but another thing about science fiction and aliens is that it's one of these things that also anything is possible. Then that's something I like to I like to dive into, even when it comes to creating effects. I like to have a sort of a supernatural twist on all my horror stuff. I think that's what we really loved about the 80s, is that all horror had a kind of a supernatural twist to it. A lot of films these days they explain everything away, and then it becomes non-scary because it's completely explained away, and there needs to be some sort of element of mystery still. I think works very well. We need to bring that back into the world of horror.
For sure.
Yeah.
My last question is, what do you recommend to folks? I know you get asked this all the time, but for my friends and fans of the show listening, the people who really want to get involved on the FX end of things, makeup, special effects, prosthetics, etc., what's your number one important piece of advice to keep in mind?
Yeah, if you want to get involved in the world of special effects, the one thing I say now, it's evolved over the years, but the one thing I say now is do it now, like right now, because it's taking me 40 years to get where I am, and I'm just now happy with what I'm doing. That's how long it's taken for me to learn and evolve and become the person that I've wanted to be, with the skills and the craft that I enjoy working with. It's taken me a long time, and I think that it's probably going to be that way for most artists. But yeah, if you're thinking about it, stop thinking about it and do something about it. And then and then another thing is there's a lot of tutorials and stuff like this online. But when I learned how to make one of the first things I did was, I was 12 years old, and a cousin of mine, his name is Eddie Paris, he bought me a book that taught me how to make a rubber mask. And if a 12-year-old can follow a step-by-step instructions on how to make a rubber mask, then you can do it too. But when people come to me and ask me for advice, I tell them to Google Cinemagic issue number 6. That was the magazine that I was bought. And most special effects artists from the 80s know exactly what I'm talking about. And I said, go and follow that. And when you're done and you have a rubber mask, come back and show me, and we can talk more. If not, you're just, it's just a hobby, but I live, eat, and breathe this stuff. So Yeah, you got to get serious about it, and you got to get serious about it right now. Yeah.
Very cool. Joe Castro, thank you for entering the chamber.
Thank you for having me on the show.